Being a former member, do you believe that Fethullah Gülen's organization was behind the failed coup attempt?
Tabii bizim içinde olduğumuz dönemde
When I was part of the group, it was not a terrorist organization. It was Gulen movement or the service movement. I was chairman of the board of trustees and the Journalists and Writers Foundation of the movement for 14 years. I left that position when he first showed his true face during February the 7th, 2012's National Intelligence Organization crisis. After that, many things happened one after another. Gezi protests took place after February the 7th. During Gezi protests, Zaman Daily started insulting the then Prime Minister Erdogan. It was very surprising for me, just as we all were surprised with the coup attempt now, because we never meddled with governments or politicians. After that, the 17th to the 25th of December event started. For me, it was a political coup against government under the name of corruption and bribery. My program at Methap Channel, which belonged to the movement, was ended, and then I took my annual leave and resigned from Zaman Daily. During the March the 30th elections and during the June the 7th elections, through Zaman Daily and Samanyolu news channel, Gülen supported different opposition parties. I firmly believe that this movement changed its course and turned into something else after Fethullah Gülen moved to the United States in 1999, and that this new form of the Gülenist movement considered a political coup against government and that they would consider a military coup. I wrote in my column that they could organize a coup, that there were rumors that they could organize a coup in October, and that we should not ignore this, and that this group had turned into kamikazes and could be involved in any type of unlawful movement. For these reasons, I have no doubt that Fethullah Gülen is behind this attempted coup.
Looking at the evidence, this was certainly a bloody coup. Is this what they were planning?
Böyle bir niyet olduğu çok açık çünkü özel birlikler indiriliyor.
Well, they obviously have such an intention because there are special forces brought to the hotel that the president is staying. 15 minutes after he left, this special unit comprising of 35 to 40 people brought with 3 helicopters. They are soldiers who have combat experience. The president was with his family, including his children and grandchildren. And a massacre like that could start a civil war that very night. The people who love Erdogan could mobilize and Turkey could face a bloody coup. God forbid, turning back from that would be very difficult. Fethullah Gülen has a target. Before the 17th to the 25th events, head of Journalists and Writers Foundation, Mustafa Yesil, and his assistant came to this very apartment to convince me. I told them as the Hizmet movement that we were interested in promoting morals, trust, and sufferance. We shouldn't be trying to infiltrate to the judiciary, the police, or the armed forces. I told them it was quite disturbing to me. To convince me, they admitted their coup intentions that day. They said that Gülen said that in order for us to survive in this part of the world, we must be part of the Turkish military. There is no other way for us to survive. Because I thought this was very important, I confessed all this in a statement to the prosecutor. Mustafa Yesil told me that the other day the military was like the main artery. Everything else, every other outfit like the schools, the newspapers, dialogue centers, foundations, were there to protect this artery. This artery is the armed forces. This is the most important thing. I talked about this many times on television. I wrote about it in my column that this important artery is the Turkish armed forces. And to convince me, he was telling me this is what Fethullah Gülen was saying personally. After hearing this, I was convinced that there was preparation within the armed forces for a coup.
How do they manage to infiltrate so many important institutions like the military and the judiciary?
Işık evler diye Fethullah Gülen'in tabir ettiği bir şey var. Şimdi herkes şunu merak ediyor.
They did this through something that Gulen calls houses. Everyone is wondering about this. How did they hide themselves so well? How did no one realize this when they became the president's military aid and the defense minister's executive military aid? There are critical military units. The brigadier generals and full generals are commanders of these units. How did no one realize this? This is how the system works. The most clever students start saying in their houses during the middle school years that they have someone they call older brother, who is a university student. Those older brothers are university students, and they are very smart students. They study at the top schools in Turkey. The students who go to these houses are first taught about respecting their parents, so that when their parents ask them where they go, they can tell them they are taught about respecting and obeying their parents. This way, parents trust them. However, after that, the first thing they learn in these houses is Fethullah Gulen. They learn about Fethullah Gulen like he is a legend. For example, they say that if students do not wake up for morning prayer, they say that Gulen sees them and that their names are on the list of those who don't wake up for prayer. They tell students that Fethullah Gulen consults with the Prophet. They tell these metaphysical stories, and the students are in a way spellbound with these stories. They call this brainwashing. Since the brainwashing starts during the high school years, military high school years, even when those students later become generals, they see Fethullah Gulen as a chosen savior, awaiting a divine person. They do not obey the command and orders of their commanders. They obey the orders of the chosen savior, the cleric of the universe, Fethullah Gulen. For this reason, questioning why these people do not listen to their commanders and how come a top aide did not follow orders of the chief of military staff does not work. They have these chips installed in their brains, and Fethullah Gulen has been giving them orders from Pennsylvania since their high school times. And they follow his orders. I wrote this in my column too. 2 years ago, a retired lieutenant colonel came to see me on Yalova Pendik ferry. He introduced himself. I learned the real story from him. He and a friend of his were entrusted to an older brother after he became lieutenant. Apparently, this is how the system works. 2 people are entrusted to an older brother, and those older brothers have their own older brothers, and so on. In the hierarchy, they have a brother for Turkey, and Fethullah Gulen deals with this one. For this reason, I can easily say that he does not know one out of these hundreds or thousands of people, but he knows the top person of the group. I learned this from the retired lieutenant colonel about what they do. These people give weekly reports to their older brothers in person. They're giving reports on everything in their own units through the week. The older brother gives it to his own older brother, and so they can inform Fethullah Gulen on everything that happened in a week in every unit of the Turkish armed forces.
How many people are we talking about?
I think they have been infiltrating for 25 years to the armed forces, starting from military high schools. Because one can become full general or brigadier general in at least 25 years, it means they have been working on this for that amount of time. My guess is that we are talking of at least 10,000 people within the armed forces. They are not evenly distributed though. Why? Well, they usually work in personnel units, intelligence, gendarmerie, and air forces. There are not as many in ground forces and infantry, but there are very strong units in the air forces and the gendarmerie. So they infiltrated to the units that would be more beneficial in the case of a coup, especially in air forces. There were 2 F-16s that were going towards the hotel the president was staying in. God protected the president. What would have happened if those F-16s could have bombed that hotel before the president could leave? Now they say that it was an F-16 that took the Russian jet down, and the prosecution started a probe into this issue. The prosecution is demanding the names of the pilots that were flying that day, the ones who could have taken the Russian jet down. They are comparing the list now. Think about it. They tried to show as if Turkey was helping Islamist terror groups in Syria by stopping National Intelligence Organization's lorries in January of 2014. I personally believe that these people who do everything to discredit Turkey also took the Russian jet down with an F-16 using their F-16 pilot. They ruined Turkish-Russian relations. Turkey was left in a very difficult position in terms of Syria issues. If this is also revealed, those who ask how we know the Gulenist terror group members did this will get their answers.
How do they manage to disguise themselves so well for so long?
Temellikten itibaren bunlar hazırlanıyor ya.
They were prepared since they became lieutenants. When they start working for the armed forces, they are first banned from praying. Secondly, they can drink alcohol. Third, they have to act exactly like other commissioned officers to not reveal their true colors. For example, when they marry their wives, cannot wear a hijab. Although they were either an older sister or a female imam for the group before the marriage, they were wearing hijabs. When they are getting married, the group has conditions for them. You will marry, this is very important. You will be rewarded as a jihadi. For this reason, you have to get rid of your hijab. Not only do they make them lose their hijabs, they also advise them to go on seaside vacations and wear bikinis like other people do. And most importantly, under the orders of Fethullah Gulen, they have made things halal that are normally forbidden by Islam. For example, I can tell you something that I heard from a high-level bureaucrat. They told him as a deputy governor, he would be a person who would come to important positions. When they serve wine to him, he would not refrain from drinking it. Have some salt with you, and if you put salt in your wine, it will not be forbidden by Islam anymore, and you can hide yourself. He told me himself. They permitted a lot of things that are forbidden in Islam. I learned something last year. I have a friend who is friends with someone from the army. This is what my friend's friend said. They gave these orders to hide themselves because some of those who started drinking alcohol later became alcoholics. And they could not quit, and their families were ruined. Fethullah Gulen created a monster from some really good people to create a Turkey that he was dreaming of. Because if they could hide themselves for 25 years until they reach brigadier general and admiral positions, they must have some problems with themselves. Because they hid well the monsters that they have become, they could fire on people, bomb the parliament, but if you saw them in their daily lives, you would swear that they would do no such thing. Like Fethullah Gulen, they have two different characters in one body. First one is the one you know, who is ethical, hardworking, and the second one is a complete monster, who follows Fethullah Gulen's every order, no matter what, who murders people without a blink.
If Fethullah Gulen is extradited or brought to justice, how much do you think will it affect the organization?
Şimdi bu terör örgütü tamamen Fethullah Gülen'den talimat aldığı için
This group cannot live, because this terror group is under the command of Fethullah Gulen. There is no one he is consulting, he is giving decisions on his own, but I think they give decisions with the US. I think that a religious person, a man who opens schools, cannot organize a coup in Turkey by himself. The coups in 1960, 1980 and 1971 were not out of America's knowledge. To say the least, they knew these coups would take place. Someone even said that our guys whispered the news to the US president. No coup takes place in Turkey without knowledge of the US. Actually, something was striking. When there was coup talk around, the US did not show a clear stance against the coup. The US started supporting the elected government after it was obvious that the coup plotters would not be successful. And the US has a record on this issue. They do not call the coup in Egypt a coup. I will never forget the White House statement. They said, legally, we do not have to call the coup in a country coup. Such a statement does not befit the United States. It does not befit American democracy. But these are in the interests of the United States. I do not condemn the United States here, but I criticize them because the United States invades Iraq with lies. Right now, Tony Blair is answering for him siding with the United States, according to a commission report, and this happened without the knowledge of British government and British Parliament. Who is dragging a very big country like the United Kingdom, the cradle of democracy, into invading Iraq? For this reason, I do not believe them when the United States asked for documents proving that this coup was organized by Fethullah Gulen. Why not? The US is the best country in feeling the pulse for these types of things. I don't believe they are seriously asking for a document proving Fethullah Gulen did this. The United States did not stop supporting the PYD when Turkey submitted many documents proving the PYD is affiliated with the PKK. This shows the US does not care about the documents. The US already knows. If the US does not know that Fethullah Gulen is behind the coup attempt, then the US is not the country we think it is. It is not a North American country, it's a South American country.
The terrorist organization has now been dealt a blow. What else are they capable of looking ahead?
Şimdi Fethullah Gülen bu işin başında olduğu için o Türkiye'ye teslim edilirse kesinlikle bu hareket sıfırlanır.
Since Fethullah Gulen is the leader of this group, if he is extradited to Turkey, then this group will diminish to nothing. And his men will be like fish washing up on the shore. But as long as he is not extradited back to Turkey and he is the leader, he will not give up. And his threat will continue. What his men will do after now depends on the measures that the government will take. The president has said he would convene a National Security Council and the cabinet, and then they would make an important announcement. I'm looking at the operations after the coup attempt, and I see that there is a serious amount of cleaning in the judiciary, ministries, and armed forces. Their strength will be weakened, but where are the hidden men? Where do they have sleeping cells? I think the threat is ongoing, since we do not know where they are.
Halen nerelerde uyuyan hücreleri var? Bunları bilmediğimiz için bu tehlike bence devam ediyor.